This video looks at descriptive outlining, which is the next phase in understanding a text through critical thinking, after having gone through the believing game and the doubting game. Going through descriptive outlining allows to create some space between the text written and the author's intention. It challenges us to see beyond what is said and figure out what the text is doing. I know this sounds strange, but if you think about it, every message put out there has been created with a certain intention. Being a critical thinker includes going beyond the words and figuring out that intention. Here are the steps to be taken. Split the text in logical chunks according to rhetorical purpose. Does the text have a persuasive, argumentative, informative, or aesthetic purpose? Analyze each chunk with the aim to find the author's intention. Beyond what the text is saying, what are the rhetorical methods employed by the author, and with what purpose? Apply critical thinking by analyzing and evaluating what the writer is doing, not just saying, to convey the message. So how do we apply this? Analyzing carefully each paragraph, or group of paragraphs, I make notes summarizing what the text is saying and also what I believe the text is doing. Here is the result. In the first paragraph, the author says the world is experiencing a devastating physical health emergency. But I believe that what the paragraph is doing is that it informs the reader about the size of the mental health problem, especially within the pandemic crisis. It uses powerful words to convince the reader emphatically. This next section speaks about the author's background and the current status of academic research of psychedelic drugs for mental health. What this section is doing is that it appeals to ethos by presenting the author's credentials and brings evidence to show the increasing interest in the psychedelic drugs for mental health. The next paragraph reports on preliminary positive results of studies looking into psychedelic drugs for mental health and contrasts them with psychotherapy and conventional antidepressants. It attempts to persuade the reader of the positive effects of psychedelic drugs for mental health. It presents two contrasting alternatives which are reported to not have had significant impact, but no sources are provided. This next section communicates about the lack of progress in mental health care. It says that psychotherapy is more expensive, harder to access, and no more effective than traditional drugs treatment. And it also reports on how conventional antidepressants work and says that these are palliative rather than curative. What this section is doing is that it offers clarification against psychotherapy and conventional antidepressants, focusing on disadvantages of these, such as high cost, difficulty of access, or ineffectiveness. It also attempts to sway the reader against traditional therapies and in favor of psychedelics, but does not provide any supporting evidence. Here, the section describes what the psychedelic treatment entails. What this section does is that it puts together the case for psychedelic therapy as a comprehensive treatment package for mental health. A suggestion of quality is also offered, that this is much more comprehensive, presumably compared to the alternatives. This paragraph makes predictions regarding the future access to licensed psilocybin therapy in North America and Europe. But what it does is that it highlights the importance of aligning these initiatives to the scientific research, both for advancing scientific understanding as well as informing and protecting the individual. This next paragraph says that stigma is attached to both mental health and psychedelics, so it will be difficult to overcome these. And what it does is that it highlights the importance of aligning these initiatives to the scientific research, both for advancing scientific understanding, as well as informing and protecting the individual. This section informs about the typical Buddhist effects of a psychedelic trip. What this section does is that it invites the reader to contemplation, which seems a complete U-turn from the lucid, rational tone of the previous paragraph. This final paragraph says that the pandemic has had two silver linings. It has invited an expanded consciousness and people have slowed down. The author compares this to psychedelic treatments which might offer similar lessons. What this paragraph is doing is that it offers a comparison of spirituality to psychedelics effects, next to using pathos, care, love, life. Finally, let's take another look at the descriptive outlining guidelines.